Weekly Intelligence Briefings, number 26. Timelines are very important if you want to understand any event. Not only that, understanding the chain of events usually solves very deep mysteries. For instance, when investigators are investigating a murder anywhere in the world, timelines are critical. Because details in that timeline will often answer very puzzling and perplexing mysteries. For instance, the victim, what were they doing 1 hour before they were murdered? Where was so-and-so seen 10 minutes after the murder? And what was his state? Etc., etc. Now, in these intelligence briefings, we're going to look at the timeline of the now very clear fallout between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, William Samoei Ruto. And it reveals new, very sensitive, shocking details. So prepare yourself for that. But first of all, let us look into this Shabaab manenos. In the early hours of Sunday morning, actually starting from about 5 a.m., the Camp Simba, which is a sizable military base of both Kenyan personnel and Americans, was hit by Shabaab. Now, usually, the total number of American personnel at this camp at any given time is 100. But quite often, it's higher, depending on what exercises, drills and operations are going on. Bottom line, it is not a place that you just hit just like that. But on Sunday, 5th May, at 5 a.m., Shabaab struck. And the casualties, according to the Americans, were 3 Americans, 1 military personnel, and 2 military contractors. Kenya, of course, suffered a higher casualty figure, which remains unknown and will most probably remain like that. Because in case you have not noticed, it is the policy of Kenya not to reveal or publicize casualty figures from terrorist attacks, which in many ways has really frustrated terrorists, because they're after numbers, they're after publicity. Now, experts tell us this was a very daring, very well planned, probably planned for a long time, because the logistics alone, to be able to pull off something like this, are huge. Now, this latest attack is a culmination of greatly heightened activity by the Shabaab terrorists, including the December 31st, 2019 attack on 3 buses that were traveling from Mombasa to Lamu. One of the 3 bus drivers, a very brave and gallant Kenyan, managed to keep the casualty figures low. Because when he was stopped, the driver did some quick thinking, realized these were not police stopping his bus, and sped on, past that roadblock. Now, the terrorists, of course, fired at the bus, and punctured the tires, but he went a whole 500 meters away from where he was stopped. And when his bus could not move anymore, he opened the doors and asked his passengers to rush into the bush, run for their lives. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting all this is because these are the telltale signs that the terrorists are planning something huge, something big, closer to the heart of Kenya, either in Nairobi or Mombasa, or elsewhere in the country, featuring very important Kenyans. And therefore, this is a time to be super alert and very careful, especially in crowded public places. Now, let's move on to the timelines. Now, what many Kenyans believe is that the president and his deputy fell out immediately after the 2017 presidential elections. Regulars to Kumekucha will probably put their falling out sometime in late 2016. Well, I'm here to tell you today that both are wrong. Impeccable sources have informed me that as early as mid-2015, there were some high-profile figures in the Rift Valley who were heard saying that President Uhuru Kenyatta would renege on his promise to support Deputy President William Ruto in 2022. Oh yes, you heard me right, mid-2015. Now it is easy to see why so many people who came across this information dismissed it immediately. Why? Because of the timelines and other events which took place after mid-2015. Top on the list was the formation of the Jubilee Party, which happened by the folding up of 11 smaller parties who joined together to form the Jubilee Party. This exercise was completed on 8th September 2016, more than a year after these high-profile individuals were heard saying deni haitalipwa in 2022, and so on and so forth. Now, these timelines are getting very confusing, are they not? But let us clear the confusion by looking at another event in the timeline that I believe is very significant in solving this mystery. 5th May 2016. On that date, Kenyans received the news they could not believe of the assassination of prominent Nairobi businessman Jacob Juma. Now, there are many very strange, indeed bizarre things linked to this assassination, which have never happened before in any other assassination in Kenya. And I believe these strange happenings are important clues that tell us a lot. One of the strangest of the strange developments around this assassination was the fact that we had people pointing us to names or a name of the person behind this assassination, meaning that there were leaks surrounding the assassination. And it got even stranger. The Kenyan public saw an alleged confession by one of the assassins, who gave so much detailed information that what they said rang very true. Now, while it is true that in the past, there's a record of state machinery subcontracting an assassination. The case in point is the assassination, the very first political assassination in Kenya, that of Pio Gama Pinto in 1965, where a man was hired, civilian, and the state machinery supervised, and organized his escape, the destroying of evidence, and ensuring, that that person was never charged in a court of law for the murder. However, what was crystal clear about the assassination of Jacob Juma is that the state machinery was not involved. Now, deep state operatives are humans. They make mistakes sometimes. Sometimes they may be sloppy, but not to this extent of leaks and even full confessions published on social media. And what was even more interesting is that it appeared that the deep state was somehow involved in the leaking of information surrounding this assassination. And we will come back to this Jacob Juma assassination in a bit. Now, after months of digging around to find out the real cause of the fallout between the president and his deputy, the most believable information I got is that it was over a corruption deal where the deputy president went so much overboard that it annoyed many people in Kenya. Many powerful people in the powerful corruption cartels that have held Kenya hostage since independence. Not only that, it was felt that the extent of this deal was going to cripple the Kenyan economy. And I was told this happened late 2014, early 2015. Now, the biggest deal which was floating around at that time was, of course, the SGR. And we know the deputy president was definitely involved because a man called Jimmy Wanjigi, the billionaire, had his own SGR plans frustrated in favor of DP Ruto's option. Jimmy Wanjigi was also a very close friend of the late Jacob Juma. Just join the dots. So now, let's go back to the timeline, and put a theory, that makes a lot of sense on that particular timeline. Late 2014, early 2015, DP Ruto does a major deal, that puts a colossal amount of money into his pockets, and into the pockets of his associates. Powerful politicians in Kenya and powerful cartels are appalled, and horrified at the sheer recklessness of the deal, that has the potential of bringing down the Kenyan economy. The deep state briefs the president and emphasizes to him that in the end, it will be all on him, because he's the man in charge. And corruption suddenly becomes a matter of national security, with the realization that it has gone completely overboard, where there is now the very high likelihood, that if people are not careful, they'll have no Kenya left to milk in a short space of time. And when the deep state gets interested in something, of course the next thing that happens is very serious research and gathering of very specific information. And inevitably, it is realized, that the deputy president has his hands on a lot of other very large corruption pies. Eurobond, the dam projects, etc., etc. And it is at this time that a very careful, well-laid plan, is muted and put into immediate motion. One of the top items in the agenda is, of course, the politics and the then upcoming general election or presidential elections of 2017. And one of the decisions made is that the URP party, that's the vehicle for Deputy President William Ruto, in 2013, has to be gotten rid of. And of course, what followed is that Kenyans saw a very determined effort, to merge all the parties under the Jubilee coalition into one political force called the Jubilee Party. And of course, it meets with a lot of obstacles and a lot of resistance, which is finally dealt with, and the Jubilee Party, is born on 8th September 2016. And then, of course, also very important in the agenda is to deal with the deputy president. And detailed dossiers and information are leaked to Nairobi businessman Jacob Juma. And the deep state is keenly aware that the only way Jacob Juma will be dealt with is through assassination. And so they gather detailed information linked to the assassination to be leaked later. And by the way, information so detailed that it can also be used as evidence in a court of law later. And so the Jacob Juma assassination happens, and within days, the whole town has the details. Now at this juncture, many top government officials are still in the dark and still taking orders from Deputy President William Samoei Ruto, believing that those are the same orders from the president. And this is deliberate, because when you do something like this, you want as few people as possible in the loop. And so the CID boss at the time, Kimani Mohoro, is involved in a desperate cover-up operation, so that the truth never gets out. But all his efforts are frustrated by persistent, very accurate, very detailed leaks, on the assassination. And it gets even more confusing for Kenyans, because in the end, Raila Odinga, the major opposition leader then, fails to point a finger at the government of the day as those behind the assassination of Jacob Juma, and instead mentions only one name: Ruto, William Ruto, which is very strange and very confusing because William Ruto serves the Jubilee government. So those who know how these things normally go down wonder, how can you name William Ruto but not the Jubilee government? Well, now we know why. And now we also know that the president fell out with his deputy, not in 2016, but in late 2014, early 2015. When you understand the past, you can understand the present and you can also predict the future. And so, we also now know, without a shadow of a doubt, that this William Ruto Uhuru Kenyatta thing cannot end well. I look forward to sharing the next intelligence briefings with you.